Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and this is a tutorial on how to do the ASMH gloss intro. And if you don't know what that is, it's a little tiny pop-up intro, and I'll show you an example of what we do here. So this is a really popular intro, and I'm pretty sure it comes from a template, but I'll be teaching you guys anyway both ways how to do it. Now, I'm going to be importing two images because one is a transparent image and the other one has a background. So we'll be doing this two different ways. You import by double clicking over here or pressing Ctrl I with that panel selected, and you go ahead and select one of these. And then after that, you just drag one of them in. So we're going to be doing the transparent one first. Now I'm going to go back to this composition that it just created automatically since we dragged it into the timeline. Right click and go to composition settings. Now I'm going to set my width to 1920 by 1080 because that's the bare minimum of what I recommend, and frame rate to 30. So we'll be making it about like, let's say maybe maximum 5 seconds. You always want to overshoot your time so that you could just drag one of these little render in and out sort of channel thing. I don't know what we call it, but basically now you see our logo is a lot bigger than what we need it to be. So we'll go ahead and select the layer of our logo, press S on our keyboard and scale it down a little bit. That looks about right. Now if we go over here, you can see in the intro you have the thing comes along with this little ripple effect, right? Rotates while it's coming up and then goes right back down with the ripple effect as well. It's a very simple animation and it shouldn't take too long. So if you are like, oh, this is probably like super long, and it's not really. So we'll just keyframe rotation by selecting the layer, then pressing R on your keyboard to bring up the rotation, and then we'll go into position by pressing P on your keyboard with the layer selected, and add the keyframes by clicking the stopwatch obviously. Then to bring up all of the keyframes, you want to go ahead and press U on your keyboard twice because you had one of those things selected, and then yeah. And then it'll bring up the two keyframes you just created. Now it looks about like 1 second. I'm pretty sure this is a template and you can find it if you really look for it, but I'm not going to because I like creating my own stuff. But basically we'll set one at like 1 second, both of the keyframes at 1 second again. And we'll position it down. Just click and drag that to the right and I'll position that down. And now as you can see, it will it rotates in obviously, as you could probably see. Let's see. Yeah, so the original logo is rotated, so we're gonna have to rotate it as it comes in like that. Now it looks very not smooth, right? Because that's just how it be. So we're gonna go ahead and select both these layers by I mean not layers, these keyframes by clicking and dragging over them and pressing F9 on our keyboard. If you have a 60% or if you don't have F9 things, just press function 9 and that should work. And now it's looking a lot smoother, but we want that same ease, right? So we're gonna go into our graph editors, of course, with our keyframe selected. And now if your graph looks like this, you want to go ahead and right click anywhere without a line and go edit speed graph. And then you're gonna click and drag over this little thing indicating our two keyframes and drag this all the way to the left. Now this is a very simple animation. This is like if you want to get into After Effects sort of animation, you need to know how to do these things. So yeah, so it looks like it goes on for another 1 second before actually animating back out. So we're gonna go do that right now. Again, doing the same exact thing. Actually, we could just go ahead and teach you a little trick here. What I'm gonna do is select these two keyframes, right? And then we're gonna press Ctrl C, copying the keyframes. Apparently you can't right click and copy, so yeah, so Ctrl V to place them exactly at 2 seconds, because that's where we want the out animation to stop. And make sure you have these selected. Right click on one of them, go to keyframe assistant, and time reverse keyframes. So it does the same exact thing but in reverse. So now if you preview that, it just goes right back down, right? Simple enough. So obviously now you can see our animation didn't last longer than 3 seconds. So now we can drag this little thing over here. Now obviously we're not done because we need the background, which is probably the most difficult part of this thing, but it's still the easiest thing to ever do. So we're gonna go ahead and right click anywhere blank on our timeline and go to new solid, and then go and just select your color by clicking on that thing. I'm gonna do a little light orange, I guess. Alright, so now we got to do the hardest part of it all, which is getting this logo repeated a bunch of times. Now there's probably a way better way than what I'm about to do, and so don't listen to me professionally. Like, okay, so instead of dragging it straight into there, we're gonna right click and make a new comp from selection. Now we're gonna scale this down like a little bit like that. And then we're gonna go back to our original one. Now we do have another composition called Headshot 07, and that is the one where we scaled it down. The only reason we scaled it down is to go ahead and repeat tile on here. We'll go ahead and show you what that's like. So now we can scale this back down a little bit, just like that. And that's what that's like. Of course, we're going to scale that back up because that looks a little bit too small, in my opinion. So now we're going to go ahead and click R, and then we'll go ahead and tilt it, just like so. And now to make it look like it's actually in the background, we're going to go ahead and create a new adjustment layer. And we're going to go ahead and search for an effect called Gaussian Blur. Always put the A before the U because just doesn't search like that if you don't. So we'll go ahead and do not 1000, do like 50 maybe, or maybe 25, like that. Looks good. So you can actually distinguish the logo from the background. Now you can see that they actually do transform, which means they do brush along, so there is motion in the background. So we're going to go ahead and animate the position of this to the end, like that. Now it looks like it's going up. You can make it faster. You're going to have to expand this if you do want to make it faster though, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. Obviously, your values do not have to be this high. They're just this high because my logo is very high resolution. You can always scale it down and do whatever you want with it, but that's how that works. And now I'm going to do something that's not in the original video, but I feel like it looks a lot better if you do have it like this. So I'm going to add a drop shadow and give it like a bunch of softness, so it's not very recognizable, but you know it makes a difference. It makes a lot of difference. And we'll go ahead and put the opacity at about 25. Now look, you can see that. You can see, look how freaking, oh my gosh, that looks just so much better. Yeah, it looks like they did put a bunch of color grading over this because it looks very unclear and unpleasant to the eyes, but I feel like this looks a lot cleaner and I'm gonna go with that. So now you're gonna select your 3 bottom layers that are included in the background. So if you do actually solo this layer, this is the only foreground layer. So we're gonna select the bottom 3 and then right click and pre-compose. We're gonna just pre-compose to BG, meaning background, if you did not know that already. And now we're gonna create the little ripple effect. Now we're gonna go to our little square up here, press Q about 2 times. Set the stroke to nothing by clicking the stroke text and not the box because that will set the color of the stroke. Set the fill to solid and go ahead and make the fill white or whatever color you want. It doesn't really matter in this situation since we're just using it as a mask. So now we're going to go ahead and create a circle, holding down shift while we do drag across the screen to make it exactly perfect as a circle, and we're just going to align that to center using the align panel. And I forgot to mention this before, but if you do not have any of the panels, go ahead and go to Window and scroll through here until you find your panel. And now we're gonna click, we're gonna actually make it below headshot. Then we're gonna keyframe the scale. Okay, press P on a keyboard. We're not gonna keyframe the position. We're actually gonna put this down to 1080, meaning the bottom of the screen. And we're gonna go back to scale, and since it stops at 1, we're gonna go ahead and set the first keyframe to 0. Oops. Yeah, we're gonna set that to 0. Set this one to as big as we need it to be. About there, until it fills the screen. So now it looks like that. Looking pretty sexy. And we're going to easy ease that the same exact way we did the face. And using that same method we did before, copy and paste those and time reverse keyframes. Looks really good. Okay. As you can see, the difference between hers and mine is that mine is a little bit higher, but you can always do that you can always lower it by putting the position down. And then of course you're gonna have to scale up a little bit more than that. And then I'm gonna copy these values so it doesn't animate. Like that. Looks good. Now to get that little ripply effect, which is just kind of easy to do. Not gonna lie, it's very easy. So what we're gonna do is Turbulent Displace. Oh, my bad, I opened that panel. Turbulent Displace, you don't actually have to have that panel, but it is a great plugin to have if you are doing this as like a working job or something. But you can use the default settings if you think that looks really good. It does in my opinion, so yeah. And then you're gonna put your background layer to alpha. And I completely forgot to mention this, but if you do not have the track matte area where I just clicked on, go ahead and go to toggle switches / modes, and it should appear after that. And if you do want to mess with these turbulent things, you can create a bunch of cool effects with them if you want to. But yeah, set your background layer to alpha matte, and then it will tell you the layer, and you want to make sure that's shape layer 1. And so look at that. Looks really nice. Now obviously if you want to make it look nicer, you just turn on motion blur on everything. And like, look at that. Look at how much nicer that looks. And then if you want to really get in depth, you can turn on motion blur in the background for whatever reason. But I think that looks really nice, and I am very proud of what we created here today. Now, if you want the background one, obviously the background one, there's going to be a lot of you with backgrounds in your profile picture. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what that's like. Alright, now look at that. That looks... wow, that looks rather square. If I do say so myself. So what we're going to do is something very simple, and we're going to select the layer, make sure it's highlighted, and double click this circle on the shape thing. And look, now it's a circle. It's that simple. And go ahead and go into our headshot layer and do the same exact thing to the background profile pictures. That is amazing. But yeah, make sure you save your projects. I'm not going to save this one because it was rather simple to create and I could recreate it anytime. If you do want your background to be a gradient, you can also add a thing called gradient ramp. And go ahead and select whatever colors you want or you think looks cool. But basically I'm gonna just undo all of that because I like the transparent version better. That is how you create the little animation effect. I see it literally everywhere nowadays, and it's probably a template if you want to search for it rather than do all this work. I will be linking this project down in the description, and all you have to do to edit it is going to be right click on these headshot pictures and go to replace footage with file. And then, yeah, you want to replace it with whatever logo you want, and then go ahead and enter into the background composition. But this is how you're gonna edit it. Is just click this fill effect and do whatever color you want. It's very simple. Anybody can do it. You don't need a lot of After Effects knowledge for this. That's basically the entire thing of this tutorial, is that you don't need a lot of After Effects knowledge. This took me about 18 minutes. And I was walking you through every single process. This would take me a shorter amount of time if I weren't talking. So yeah, thank you all for watching this tutorial, and I hope you guys learned something from this. That's the main thing about these tutorials. I want you guys to learn and not just copy me the entire way through. But this was suggested by someone in our comment section, and thank you to that person for suggesting this video. But anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye bye.